Okay, so welcome back to today's show. I have one of my favorite people in the entire world. I'm so happy I met you years ago. So Michelle Stewart is an incredible, how do I describe you, Michelle? Like, what's your holistic psychologist, all-round healer, emotional trauma, everything you do?
Yeah, well, I'm actually probably in the process of trying to figure that out myself at the moment, as
Yes.
after spending, the last 10 years practicing psychology and
Yes.
as a clinical psychologist. But since graduating and working with people, I realized that your traditional like CBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and everything I was trained in just wasn't really cutting the mustard.
Yes.
And then when I started working with people with chronic health conditions, like referrals from you and other functional medical doctors, I realized there was just this whole area that was kind of underexplored and underutilized in traditional psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of other psychologists that are, a bit more like trauma informed, nervous system informed. That you can see the flavor of all of this all over Instagram, right? Everyone's into like trauma, functional medicine,
Somatic
integrative
breathing.
medicine,
Yes.
wellness. It's such an explosion, longevity. So I personally for myself, I'm interested in, obviously as a client of yours.
Yeah.
I'm interested in improving my health, well-being, looking at longevity factors, but also quality of life internally, in the mind and in the body, which has led me probably down, like emotional freedom techniques, tapping, matrix re-imprinting, a little bit of eye movement. But the biggest piece for me is really polyvagal theory and this idea of really understanding how the nervous system functions and how that, as it's kind of the interface between our psychology and our biology, and understanding our biology and our psychology through that lens can just be really helpful for people.
That's incredible. And, it's one area that I'm super interested in, looking at the vagus nerve and the interaction between the vagus nerve and the rest of the body. So we don't get lost today, our show is around self-sabotage and self-defeating behaviors. And as they're a form of, is it protection of the nervous system or an old form of that? Because originally we'd look at it as something bad, wasn't it, originally? But there is a way that we can frame this differently. Could you explain around self-sabotage and self-defeating behaviors and how they come out around Christmas time?
Yep, absolutely. We're all pretty familiar with that.
Yes.
So just one point though I will make about the vagus nerve, which is something that's just popped up for me recently, is the quality of the vagus nerve as we experience it today is 100% reliant on the quality of our mother's experience while they were pregnant with us. So your mother's vagal tone, which is impacted by her environment, actually sets the tone, if you like, for your own vagus nerve.
So interesting.
There's a massive attachment piece, which I think is maybe a little bit misunderstood. Everyone's trying to like hack the vagus nerve and do all this. While all of the tools and strategies are important, we have to also think about the attachment relationship. So the relationship between mother and infant, which, because the vagus nerve is also shaped through the whole lifetime, and especially through the first 3 years of development. But that also sets the tone for that nervous system, which leads into the self-sabotage behaviors. So the quality of our nervous system, our vagal tone, and our defense strategies and the defenses within the nervous system have a massive role in the self-sabotage and self-defeating behaviors.
That's really interesting. So what would happen if a woman was pregnant and she suffered a lot of trauma, stress, and anxiety through pregnancy? Would that pass down in the vagal tone of the child, that same kind of trauma?
Yeah, well, essentially the child, in many different ways. There's a lot of different people who speak about this, and like Bruce Perry is a really interesting person to follow, because he looked a lot at how cortisol travels through the placenta and how it begins to shape the architecture of the developing brain and the developing nervous system, because the brain is obviously part of the nervous system. So babies who are born to mothers who are very stressed out are primed for being hypervigilant. So they're a little bit more born a bit more mobilized. So we kind of have these 3 levels of the nervous system, very simplistic from polyvagal theory. The one we all know about is mobilization, fight and flight. But then there's also this like dorsal vagal, which is more of the immobilization portion of the nervous system ladder. And that's when people that's your freeze response, but not just like a mobilized freeze, but a real like shut down, immobilized, disconnected, disassociated freeze. So we understand when babies are born, they're born with the capacity to freeze and to go into sympathetic mobilization. But the third layer of the nervous system, which is where the vagus nerve is really implicated, is more around regulation, messages of safety, connection, etc. And that is shaped by the experiences of the child.
Okay, that's interesting.
So how this plays out is that when a baby is born, they might be more mobilized if they've had a very stressed out parent.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight, exactly.
Okay,
You're more fight and flight in the system.
Great.
Then when the baby's born, if the mother is still in a state of, fight and flight, there might be a little bit less attunement to the baby. So because of course, and it's not the mother's fault, right? She's just dealing with what's going on in the environment. Like you're born into a war zone, then it's actually, if you think about it from an evolutionary point of view, it's really helpful that you're born hypervigilant so you can watch out for danger because it keeps you safe.
Interesting, yeah.
So this is where environment shapes the biology.
Yes.
The issue here is that we have so many stresses in our world that shape our biology that aren't real, true stresses. Not in the traditional sense.
So like being in a car park and someone yelling at you on Christmas is different than being in a war zone.
Exactly, but it feels in your nervous system. But this is the point, right? The nervous system doesn't know the difference between like a tiger in the room or the $2,000 electricity bill just before Christmas, right? So the nervous system responds in the same way.
Interesting. That's interesting. So I have a big question. Like as far as like helping with the vagus tone and self-defeating behaviors through things like EFT and amazing techniques that you do, which will go a bit more in depth. What if a person was nutritionally deficient inside?
Yeah.
And they weren't doing any work on dopamine boosting, serotonin, or any deficiencies they had? Would these therapies still work as well? No.
But that's a very interesting point as well, because the nervous system needs, as you know, this is more your area of expertise.
Yes.
I know a little bit, like magnesium and zinc, so that the nervous system is firing up properly and that then keeps the biology going. So there's this very important bottom up, or the way I explain it to clients is we've kind of got the biology or the body, the physiology, and then of course we've got the mind and the mental processes that go on in the mind, and then in between is the nervous system. So the body needs a full nutrition on board to support the functioning of the nervous system. So we've got all the neurotransmitters on board and we're firing and wiring so that all of this other stuff we're doing actually lands.
That's interesting, because a lot of clients will say, I've been doing psychology for years, or I've been doing all these therapies, but nothing's shifting anything. Do you think a lot of that has to do with the fact either they're doing the wrong therapies, but also if they are doing the right ones, they're not doing any work internally to actually balance the vagus nerve, the nervous system, and all of these important systems that help assist it?
Absolutely, So you've got to be working at all the levels. So I offer all my clients, it's really important for them to be working on their biology at the same time as we're working together, understand the nervous system, and you need a little bit of a team and it's a holistic framework essentially.
Well, I have something interesting actually. What would be, so I would have been born in fight and flight because I was born in a car accident, right? So I didn't know, but I was in the belly, right? And then my mum was hit by a drunk driver. Anyway, it was on April Fool's Day. I ended up surviving, and I came out with a call which they said I would be a healer, all this kind of stuff. But I was still born into an accident, and so I started doing a lot of biofield tuning and work, around with Jody and that kind of area. And she picked up instantly in my field that I still had that adrenaline approach through my field. Would that be a lot from birth?
Well, you're born switched on, right? So that adrenaline, that HPA axis is born fully engaged. So it's a pattern of mobilization that's kind of trapped in the nervous system. So it does impact through the lifetime. Saying that, there's always, like mobilization is a lot of high energy and it's a lot of
sorry.
Like it's
live.
So the system is born into mobilization. Obviously you have experiences in your lifetime with your mum that were nurturing, and so the ventral vagus, which is the portion of the nervous system which is around safety and connection and communication, it's like a 3-tiered system. You can think of it as like the ventral vagus, which is the uppermost portion of the body, social connection. It operates through voice, sight, gaze, like when a mother is gazing lovingly at the infant, communicating regulation and co-regulation and attunement. So the quality of those experiences afterwards would have developed the nervous system in different ways, but obviously the mobilization portion may still have been switched on and activated. And your mum would have been it would have been a very stressful way to enter the world with
definitely.
a new baby. And new babies are stressful anyway, right?
Yeah.
So of course these accidents and incidents do affect and do kind of have us born switched on, if you like, mobilized, and are not ideal, but there are always environmental influences that can moderate that or influence that in more positive ways as we go through the life cycle. And you know, energy work and sound therapy and cognitive, you know, certain types of therapies can help to just kind of alleviate that. There's a wonderful somatic therapist who talks about it. It's like that our nervous system is like a swimming pool, and that all the stresses and events that happen to us are like beach balls that get stuck in the pool. So as we go through life, we want to expand the capacity of that nervous system through resourcing and interactions and nurturing experiences, so that increases our capacity. So whatever stresses are in there, we are able to deal with. We've got more like flow in the system. So when people are like stuck and stagnant, it's like all of that trauma is there and it's kind of stuck until something happens in the outside world which triggers that trauma, and the system gets overwhelmed, and then it goes into mobilization depending on what the stressor. So if one of those old stressful events was a freeze shutdown, then they'll go into freeze shutdown. And if what's triggered it was a fight or flight action that wasn't maybe completed, then that person might go into mobilization and fight, flight, or what we call like, I guess simplistically, anxiety or depression.
That's really interesting.
Exactly. So for you, it might be that there are those beach balls in there, but you know, over time you've mobilized your system. You've maybe managed to release some of that. So you've increased your capacity, and in that way you've been able to sort of process and move through. And we all have the same.
It's a work in progress all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's so beautiful working on yourself and releasing a lot of this old kind of patterns and traumas. But getting around that, like there's a lot of negative connotation around patterning and self-sabotage, you know, and self-defeating behaviors. Can we turn that into something positive or look at it a different way rather than crucify ourselves?
This is actually the critical point. Now we'll get on to the topic of self-sabotage. But even the word self-sabotage is so judgmental.
Oh, yeah, negative,
and
isn't
the
it?
old cognitive approaches, they even change it more to secondary gain. But even that just doesn't, it really fails to really understand what's happening in the nervous system when these sorts of self-defeating behavioral patterns emerge. So, you know, we've kind of danced a little bit around the nervous system, how we're born. It's, you know, a bit simplistic. We don't need to understand too much about that to really understand that when something shifts and changes in our environment, and that could be a positive thing or a negative thing, that is sending information into the nervous system. Now, the nervous system is scanning the environment all the time.
It's interesting.
For signals of safety or danger. Now, what the nervous system interprets as dangerous might not be cognitively what we experience as dangerous. So if you're someone who comes from a background of maybe a lot of chaos and trauma in your family, and then you have a new relationship with someone and they're very, very mellow and they're mild and they're quite peaceful, strangely, your nervous system might interpret that as danger. Like, this is unfamiliar. This is really weird. And what your behavior will then be more of a result of the felt sense of the nervous system and the defenses of the nervous system against this unfamiliar feeling, rather than what you actually want. So that's where you go, but in my mind, I know this guy's really good for me, and this is a great relationship, and I finally found my person. But the behavior of the nervous system might be a bit panicky. We might go into fight and flight because this is a very unfamiliar feeling. And we might start picking fights.
That's really interesting.
And then we'll be like, why am I picking a fight?
Yeah.
And it's like, but the biology is like, this feels really weird. So those old stresses that get triggered, they're from the past. They don't realize, oh, now I'm out of that old environment. I'm in a new environment. It's actually safe for me to change and have this new relationship or take this new diet or follow Katrina's protocol. Like it's the right time to do that. But the nervous system might be stuck in physiology of the past.
That's interesting.
So what we begin to do then when we understand that is we go, this reframe is critical. The reframe then is, so what if those self-defeating behaviors were actually self-protective behaviors?
Oh, that's interesting.
Parts of us have been activated by whatever's changed in our environment to protect you.
Yeah,
that would completely change the way we relate to ourselves and those behaviors. And in that is the key to moving through.
That would give you more awareness too.
And
the situation.
that is self-compassion, right? Or even it's just neutral, right?
Instead of being hard on ourselves about the behaviors.
Yeah.
Because everyone is, you know, like, oh my God, I do the wrong thing. I eat sugar all the time.
I'm guilty.
Or every time I'm stressed, I need a drink of alcohol, you
Yep.
know, and then we feel guilty afterwards.
Yep.
So it's all this really anger at ourselves, you know, or disappointment in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Yeah. So what I tend to do,
Yes.
and I work a lot with my clients on, is working
Yes.
on the anger and disappointment and the self-judgment.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I do that through looking
Yeah.
really at this nervous system ladder, and
Yeah.
for us to really begin to understand that physiology,
Yes.
understand our own ladder and how our ladder expresses itself. Like, how do we know when we're in freeze or when we're in sympathetic or when we're safe? And we begin to track our nervous systems up and down and we travel up and down that nervous system all day long, all week long, all year long. And once we begin to track the nervous system through the lens the felt sense of the nervous system through the lens of this nervous system ladder that I use, it encourages people to just have a little bit more of a neutral observation of themselves rather than self-critical judgment. So it kind of disables this inner critic. Instead of going, look at all the things you're doing wrong, it's like, oh, that was, you know, you just picked a fight with your husband. Let's stop there for a moment. Okay, what's coming up for me? Where was my nervous system? Okay, a little bit deeper understanding of what was happening within the system, and then say something was triggered in me, a fear or an old pattern, and how can I resource that and then move forward rather than beat myself up for the behavior, because then we've got this secondary behavior of self-criticism and harsh self-criticism very often.
That's interesting.
And harsh self-criticism is actually a fight response of the nervous system. So we can even understand that when we're beating ourselves up, go, hang on a minute, I'm in fight and flight and I'm actually fighting myself.
Yes.
And then we can kind of like, can we drop the behavior and drop the thoughts and drop everything, drop into the body and just see, what does my nervous system need right now to bring itself back up into a space, which is kind of up the ladder, into a space where we might be able to have a more neutral opinion of ourselves or even access more positivity. Because when we're in those fight, flight and freeze responses, the brain itself is, certain portions of the brain are out of reach for us. They're shut down, like prefrontal cortex goes offline.
Interesting, yeah.
So when people understand, when I'm in dorsal vagal, and I get people to track like their thoughts in those different states, in like 10 minutes, I can have someone go from the world is a terrible place and it's dangerous, and then take them up into a memory or a felt sense of feeling safe and connected and loved. And they're like, the world is golden and I'm an amazing person. It's like, see, and this is where CBT was always like, you've got to get the core belief. It's like your core belief is based on where your nervous system is.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So self-sabotage behavior lives in the defensive states of the nervous system.
Wow,
so when we understand that the self-defeating behavior is actually a signal to us that we are outside of regulation, and then we begin to see it differently.
Yeah, interesting. So as people, what are some self-sabotaging behaviors that a lot of people miss in themselves? Is there any that you recognize, you know,
I think
your
a big
work?
one for me as well is like procrastination.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great one.
That's a
we
good
all
one.
want to talk about that.
That's kind of fight and flight a little bit, depending on how severe it is. But also, if we think about, to your point, like when someone is depleted and they're maybe adrenally fatigued and they're actually very tired, they need to mobilize. Their nervous system's perspective is, we need to mobilize a hell of a lot of energy to get this person to get out of bed this morning or to go to work. So what do? Let's lie here for a really long time and procrastinate it and wait until we hit that threshold of adrenaline and cortisol we need to bounce up.
Yeah, that's
so procrastination is the body. It makes a lot of sense. Like, of course, the body's going to wait until it's got enough energy on board to jump up.
Yeah,
of course, it's torturing us.
Yeah.
And in our mind, we've got all these thoughts going alongside, like, I'm a terrible person, I can't get out of bed. Until the point of panic, and then we jump up and then we do all the things, right? So
that's interesting.
when we lie there and go, I'm procrastinating. Okay, I'm just tired. Let me just, rest for a moment and just be a little more gentle with ourselves.
And loving to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a great one.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Picking a fight with your partner is another great one.
Okay, that's interesting.
Life's too good.
Yes.
Let me just pick a fight. This feels unfamiliar to my childhood environment. Let me pick a fight with my husband.
I do it a day before my period comes. On the hour.
And that's a good example of where your biology dictates your behavior.
That's true. Yeah. Like even once it didn't happen this year and I was like, what is going on here?
What, you didn't pick a fight?
Yeah. Because I always know it's coming because a day before on the hour, I'll pick a fight for no reason. I was like, this is really unusual. I must be going into menopause. Things like that. I would love to know. This is something and I know all my clients are really interested. Things like EFT, right?
Yes.
EFT is just one of your amazing therapies that you do. And I don't want to say therapies. They're like things that you can incorporate into your life on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe EFT and the benefit it could have with things like self-sabotage and clearing patterns and things like that? Because a lot of people don't understand. They go, EFT, what's that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the biggest piece of work I do though is getting people to understand the nervous system and the reframe, because then they need to be using EFT in the correct way.
Okay, interesting.
Because sometimes someone can go, oh, I'm feeling really angry, and use EFT to get rid of the anger. But actually the anger is important because it's telling you like, actually something happening over there and you need to pay attention and take a different action.
That's interesting. So be aware of the behavior or pattern.
Yes. Well, self-awareness is the first key.
Okay, and not criticize yourself.
Yes, and drop the criticism
and the judgment on yourself, and be aware of how the nervous system works first, in that kind of respect, and then look at pattern, like things like it could be EFT, biomatrix, whatever it may be. What are some of your favorite ones, like that you love to work with people on improving the way they respond to things like that, and not just setting up these self-defeating behaviors as being bad?
So I think once people really get what the what the self-defeating behaviors are, and they understand their own nervous system physiology a bit, then what they can do is go, oh, I've got this like strong sympathetic response in my body. I've just picked a fight with my husband and I'm actually feeling very activated. Okay. So I get people to start using words like my system, feeling a lot of activation, because it takes us into more neutral language instead of going, I'm furious and I'm angry and I'm rageful. So we change the language and we change that basic understanding first, because even with that, it begins to provide a little bit of a distance between them and the sensation. So my system's very activated. So then I might get people to do some tapping on, all this stress in my body or nervous system, all this tension. Then they're working on they've got and whatever the language is for them. It could still be anger, it could be emotional language they're using, but we can really still use tapping as a way of helping them resource that sympathetic state, this overactivation of the nervous system. I often get people just to do tapping and breathing as an initial, because I really want you to feel the effect of the tap and the breath before we use any words, and just tap around all the tapping points and just simply breathe to really feel what it does to the physiology.
That's interesting.
Because it's also a tool for getting into sensation, because one of the biggest issues is we can go into the nervous system ladder, we can understand it, but then people are like, I don't really feel anything. So then people need to work on feeling into the body with body scans, yoga nidra, these kind of strategies to open up those lines of communication, because there's often in a lot of trauma, people become quite disconnected from their physical body. So opening up communication, and then once we've kind of got a bit of communication, it can feel quite unsafe, or it can feel a bit overwhelming. So then the tapping can be a wonderful resource for kind of helping restore connection and help people cope with the strong sensations that might be arising. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. It's really interesting because two things I would love to ask, and everyone loves this, but one thing is when they get you to do affirmations, they don't work, obviously, unless you have the feeling, you're going deep into that feeling, you actually feel it. So if you just say a word, I'm grateful for this, but you have no gratitude or feeling towards it, often they don't work. Would that work in the same kind of way, is to get the feeling of the response as well? Or how
and that would also depend on where you are in your nervous system, right?
Yeah.
So if you're trapped in freeze, dorsal vagal shutdown, and some people can be trapped there in chronic depression for years, then it's never going to work, because they're in a space of their nervous system where they don't have access to positive thoughts or positive memories. They're locked down. Whereas because you might say yourself, positive affirmation works now, and then 5 minutes later it doesn't. So even saying it and going, that's not landing, kind of gives you a clue. Oh, where am I in my nervous system? I'm in fight and flight. So if we're in that uppermost portion of the ladder, which is your some people call it like window of tolerance or window of capacity. So when you're more in your window of capacity, what we call also ventral vagal portion of the nervous system, safe, social, connected, we've got a lot more access to feeling the truth of positive suggestions.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah. So it's going to give you an indication. But this is where tapping can be really helpful, because you can still utilize it in this way and go, okay, I've said this positive affirmation, but actually after I say it, I hear this little voice in my head telling me all of the ways that that's not true. So they call it in EFT, we call it tailor enders. So it's like you say, I am happy, healthy, and robust. And this little voice goes, no, you're not. You're a liar. You're a liar. You just ate a box of Tim Tams, right?
Yeah.
And then, but then the tapping, then you go to, okay. So then you'd be tapping on the fact that, what comes up, I'm feeling very guilty. I feel like I'm a liar. So you can use tapping and other strategies to help release those, the negative charges, and then go back into the positive affirmation and see if it lands a little better there.
Okay, so I want to get on to some of the other stuff, but just what is EFT? It's emotional freedom technique.
Yes.
And how does it work through the body through a tapping? Is it certain areas you have to tap or?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you want to do a round now?
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. I'd love it.
All right, perfect. So what it is we'll just start tapping on the side of your hand here. Okay. So just on like the
this side? Okay, perfect.
It's like the karate chop point. It used to be called, but now it's the side of the hand point because that was a bit of a triggering statement for some people. So this is the initial point. I'll take you through the series of points. They are essentially meridian end points.
Okay, fantastic.
So obviously the meridians of the body, most people are familiar with that through acupuncture. When we use this light percussive tapping on there, it stimulates those points. And through various mechanisms, it just sends soothing messages into the nervous system and into the brain.
Oh, that's fantastic. I feel relaxed already.
You do, right? And there have been some people online that have shown brainwave patterning while tapping and noticed that the brain goes into this similar kind of brainwave states of someone who's meditating. So this is a wonderful technique for someone who struggles to meditate because it brings that amount of relaxation into the system. It's a great gateway to meditation.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah. So what I usually get people to do is tap on each point and then just take a couple of breaths. So just take a couple of breaths here. And sometimes people say take a deep breath, but the more education I've got on board around nervous system is more like just breathe however your biology wants you to, because everything we do, we want to be really tuning into how our body wishes to respond.
Yes.
However, when we take our attention to the breath and just let the body breathe how it wants, often it does tend to take a deeper breath.
It's really interesting because you taught my daughter how to do this many years ago. And anytime we've had like a stressful event or for her or anything, I notice she sits down and starts tapping and breathing, and it changes her whole energy instantly. She always tells me I do it wrong. She said, Michelle, show me this.
We'll get it right today.
Okay, perfect.
And the next point there is beginning of the hair of the eyebrow.
Yeah.
So just where the hair begins. So on the side there.
On one eyebrow.
Yeah, on one eyebrow. And some people like to do both at the same time. Get a double. You can do it cross body. You can change hands halfway through if your hand gets sore.
Yeah.
So we'll just tap here and take 2 breaths. And then the next point is if we go around the eye to the outside of the eye on the bone. Yep, take 2 breaths here.
I remember when I wrote my cancer book years ago, I did